10 students, and welcome back to assignment 1.3. Now, if you haven't already done assignment 1.1 and 1.2, this could be a little more challenging because this just kind of picks up where the others left off. So let's go through this. We're looking at Shakespeare's play, The Tragedy of Julius Caesar. And as we go through this monologue, the first thing that you guys are going to be looking at here is some of this vocabulary that appears in the monologue itself. And the assignment that you'll be doing with this is to replace those words with their definition or a synonym, right? Then, once you cross it off and replace it, as you can see right here, you're then going to tell what is the meaning behind this. Now, this is tricky, so we're going to go over the monologue together so that you guys know what it means as we go. When we're done, we're going to be looking at certain questions such as problems a person might have if they are overly ambitious, the event he's giving the speech at, why he's speaking to them, what messages he's trying to give them, what point is he making about Caesar and Caesar's ambition, and then also why he's using this device of repetition within his monologue. So let's go ahead and begin. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. So right away, he starts kind of like how Brutus started, right? By making himself kind of one with them. He's addressing his friends, his Romans, his countrymen, people who are like him, right? So he's trying to kind of get their attention so they'll listen, but also to show he's one of them. He's also saying, listen, I know a lot of people kind of had a hard time about Caesar and his ambition. I'm not here to praise him. I'm just here to help out with this funeral, right? All right. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. In other words, what he's saying is that when people do really bad things, people tend to remember that more than anything else. And the good, people tend to forget. And he's noticing that this is probably the way things are going to be with Caesar, because Caesar was trying to take over Rome. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. So in other words, yeah, ambition is a bad thing when you get too overly ambitious, and it's a horrible fault. But Caesar has died for that fault. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. All right. So under leave of Brutus and the rest, in truth, what we're having here is that Brutus and the other senators who caused Caesar's death, who actively stabbed him and plotted against him, are watching Marc Antony, because Marc Antony is about to talk about Caesar, and Marc Antony is still on Caesar's side, even though Caesar's dead. And they do not want him trying to expose this whole plot and what really went down, even though people know that he was assassinated, obviously, with, 20 some odd wounds from being stabbed. So he's trying to call them honorable here, Brutus, as well as the others, to kind of point out that, look, they're honorable. We know that they're good people. Don't fault me for anything I'm going to say because I'm acknowledging they're honorable. He's kind of using a little bit of flattery here because he knows that he's in peril. If he speaks too much and says the wrong things, they might be after him. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. All right, so he's pointing out the fact that Brutus has said, look, this guy's too ambitious, we had to take him out, and Brutus is honorable. Therefore, you have this kind of symbiosis between Brutus's actions and Brutus as an honorable person, because people did admire Brutus. People did see him as an honest and honorable person, and so he's acknowledging that. He's being careful. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? So what he's basically saying here is Rome became wealthy because of Caesar, right? He brought home slaves, the captives. So after he conquered a land, he would bring the captives home, right? He also filled the coffers, meaning he increased the wealth of their country. And he asked this rhetorical question, did this in Caesar seem ambitious? So he's kind of making a point of, yeah, he was kind of ambitious, but look, he did this that benefited everybody. So that's a good thing. When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. So what he's saying here is, hey, Caesar was right with the poor people, right? He was there alongside them. He grew up. He wasn't rich. He tried his best to make their lives better. And if someone's overly ambitious, they would be doing something a little more harsh than simply weeping with and for the people who are poor. So he's painting him out as kind of a philanthropist, a giver. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. So again, back with this whole honorable idea. You all did see that on Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Another rhetorical question, and what he's saying is he tried to make Caesar a king, and Caesar said, no, I don't need to be a king. And so he's showing him that, look, he really wasn't overly ambitious because he refused to become the king of Rome. And kings of Rome in the way distant past were a problem because they acted like dictators, right? And so he's trying to point out that no, Caesar was not really a dictator. He was trying to do what was good for Rome. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure, he is an honorable man. So again, he's contradicting Brutus here, right? By basically saying, look, Caesar really wasn't overly ambitious. He was here for us. He did all the right things. But still, I'm going to say that Brutus is honorable. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? So in other words, Caesar was this great guy who did these things. People admired him. People appreciated the things that he did. What makes you think that he wasn't a good man? What makes you withhold your good opinion of him now? O judgment, thou art fled to Brutus' beast, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me. So he's kind of irritated here, and he's saying that people are basically being beasts by being so judgmental against Caesar about accepting his death. Well, at least the senators, right? And so he's kind of getting emotional down here. I must pause till it come back to me, because he's having a hard time at this point, and he ends his speech at that point, having not pointed out that Brutus and the senators brutally murdered this man who he feels was good for Rome. So again, he's being very cautious about this. All right. So as you go through, the noble Brutus had told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it were a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. And so he's saying, notice the if here. He's kind of conceding the point, saying, well, Brutus told you he was ambitious, and if he were, this is kind of like saying, well, if I offended you, then I'm sorry, rather than, oh man, I'm sorry I'm sorry that you're upset by what I did. Down here we have brought many captains home to Rome, whose ransom did the general coffers fill. Again, we're talking about how Caesar brought so much wealth through all his conquests, because he brought slaves and he brought money and he brought land and all sorts of good things. Also taxes. You know, once you conquer a place and you have the people kind of under your thumb, you can then charge them taxes, which increases the wealth of the state. Did this Caesar seem ambitious? Again, we're talking about he thinks that a real man who was truly overly ambitious would have been rougher with his people. And here you have it again. All right. So go ahead if you need to look at this again to fill the rest out. Or if you have any questions, you can always contact me at bluebot@luhsd.net. And I will see you in the next whatever assignment we have.